So now let me tell you about the main characters in today's episode. We focus on a family named Houseman. What are you smiling about? Okay, up comes the second card. I cannot read it, but I see two cats and a crow or a raven in the background. What is it?
This is the Six of Cups.
Okay.
And cups represent emotions, but the six represents family. So this is a family-related crime.
I should just have you tell the crime story there, Darcy, and I'll just sit here in awe. How's that? Okay.
Welcome to Seeing Dead People, the slow burn storytelling podcast where our host, Nicola, challenges her psychic friend Darcy to communicate with the dead and unravel historical ghost stories, unsolved true crime mysteries, and all things paranormal. If you want to be spooked, amazed, and entertained, stick around for an astonishing, deep dive convo with the spirits on the other side. Radio Sydney presents Seeing Dead People, episode 48, The Witch of Staten Island.
Okay, hey, Darcy, nice to see you tonight.
It's good to see you too.
Today we're also going to try showing the photographs on a secondary iPad so we can start slotting them in and see what, so people can actually see the photographs in the video for the very first time. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah. And I'm going to use Toby's tarot tonight to see if I can get some insight into what we're doing.
Oh, cool. All right. This is going to be fun. Well, I'm always excited to talk to you. And this one, I've got to say right out front, I got to give a shout out to one of our listeners. This show suggestion was given to me by one of our listeners. And it's really an interesting one. So I want to send out a hearty thank you to SF for the suggestion. And of course, we're always keen to hear from people, comments and suggestions for topics for us to discuss. So just touch base with us on the email to info@radiosydney.ca if you want. Now we're going to get going and we're going to get a chance, before you get a chance to steal all my thunder, Darcy, because you usually do, I'm going to just check in. Have you got any inklings tonight about what we might start to talk about?
Okay, so I laid the cards and I pulled. Can you see tell me when I get it in.
You're centered there. I see Queen of Wands.
Okay.
Wands.
Wands normally represent fire and anger, work, and a bunch of other things. But if you notice on this Queen of Wands, there's a guy behind her.
I can see something. It's not that clear. Is it an owl?
No, it's a cat. Right behind her. I don't know. Can I get it closer?
Yes.
Right behind her is a black cat.
Yes, I see that. Okay, so there's actually a gray cat in the front, a black cat, and is there a white cat to the right?
An owl.
An owl. Okay, it is an owl. Okay.
Okay. Now, that tells me that in this particular case, normally the Queen of Wands would be someone who sits in a position of authority, but because she has that downbeaten look to her and she's got the black cat behind her, who I love black cats, by the way, but it looks like the cats behind her is more sure of themselves. So in this particular case, I'm going to say a woman and a man. And the wands would tell me that there could be a little walking in this story.
A little walking?
Yeah, from place to place to find the answers.
I love that. Oh, that's very cool. Okay. Oh, man. Interesting. Okay. Well, today we're going to have our Seeing Dead People handled a little differently than generally. I'm going to reveal the big event really early on without exposing too much, though, about who was involved. And then I'm going to see what you can make of that.
Okay.
All I say is that this unsolved mystery pretty well launched the sensationalist mass media frenzy of the gutter press in the United States. Are you game to dive into this media circus?
I sure am.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, today we're heading south and east to what is known as the Big Apple, the greater New York City area. Our time is 1843. Our specific location is a small village called Graniteville on Staten Island, which is one of the 5 famous boroughs of New York. The others, by the way, are Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx. So given that we're visiting the New York City area over nearly 180 years ago, You can imagine relevant photographs are non-existent, but we do have a few woodcut images, as well as a couple of newspaper clippings to have a look at to help inform us today. So let's have a look at our first photograph, Darcy. Photo number 1, and I'm going to show it as well to our audience. Photo number 1.
Easier. You show and I'll look.
Okay, so it is a simple Google map, and it is showing Staten Island way over here. There's Staten Island, okay, which is actually situated sort of south and west of the actual like Statue of Liberty, okay, and of New York City itself. So amazingly, in past episodes, Darcy, like our Cold Arctic Death, episode 33, and Sailing into Oblivion, episode 40, you were able to glean incredible insights into the stories from just looking at these flat, green Google map screenshots. So I'm going to throw it out to you. Anything you see from this number 1 photo?
Okay, first thing that stands out is the name Elizabeth. Okay, it says Elizabeth Port, but Elizabeth, Liz, something about Elizabeth stands out. Okay, it's almost like it's jumping out at me. The other thing about it is that I'm going to go back to the Queen of Wands. My particular card seems very dark, like something dark or mysterious happened here, or at least it was blamed. And because there's been a few times we've talked, it made me think of what's her name, Blair Witch.
Yes.
So you know, maybe because it's notorious for having had black magic and stuff around it, maybe there's a little catch there.
Well, I'd say like you dinged 3 times. Bing, bing, bing.
Okay.
It's astounding, Darcy. So very well, you're doing very well with these tarot cards and everything else. So around this time, Darcy, Staten Island, which is of only 60 square miles of land mass, was an insular farming and fishing community of only about 10,000 residents. Okay, not a lot. Just as a fun comparison, today, the little island of Staten has over 500,000 residents. So it's kind of grown in the last 180 years. But hey, we're in the mid-1800s. The island was, as I said, sparsely populated with folks sharing multi-generational roots. In other words, everybody either knew everybody or was related to everybody in some very direct way. Although a specific database kind of isn't available, our target village of Graniteville probably boasted only a couple of hundred folks. So these interrelationships become quite critical later in our story. So now let me tell you about the main characters in today's episode. We focus on a family named Houseman. What are you smiling about? Okay, up comes the second card. I cannot read it, but I see 2 cats and a crow or a raven in the background. What is it?
This is the 6 of Cups.
Okay.
And cups represent emotions, but the 6 represents family. So this is a family-related crime.
I should just have you tell the crime story there, Darcy, and I'll just sit here in awe. How's that? Okay. We're talking about a family today called Houseman, as I said. The members include a husband, father, an oyster fisherman named George, his wife, Emmeline. Living nearby is George's sister, Mary Bodine, who's known as Polly. George and Emmeline have a baby daughter whose name is Anna Eliza.
Elizabeth.
Hence the Elizabeth, I think, connection. Absolutely. Polly, as she is known, has a lover, a local apothecary or a pharmacist. He's called George Waite. Excuse me. And yes, Darcy, this is a tale with 2 Georges. I want to ask you, do either of them really matter?
Oh, yes, they do. And okay, here leads my problem because they're both Georges. I would have said George did it, but now we got to find out which one.
Okay, well, let's check in. Now you think you're seeing George doing something. All right. Well, let's start to get closer to the actual incident. Imagine living in this tiny village in the northern part of Staten Island. It's Christmas Day, Darcy, 1843. The actual time of the day is uncertain, but I imagine children playing outdoors in the cold, men folk warming themselves up over a brew in the local tavern, and women, of course, slaving nearby in their kitchens. Okay. What happens to upset this serene Christmas scene, Darcy?
Well, I would say that given that I picked the Knight of Swords here, you can see that it's really dark and lighter down below. And so this darkness through the middle would tell me something physical happened to someone, as well as, well, because they used wood fires back then to cook on everything, I smell smoke.
Okay.
So I'm guessing maybe someone got killed at
Wow.
Christmas.
Okay, well, I want to just show you another little map of so this map is of the time frame that we're talking about. Okay, so this is an 1839 map. There's Staten Island in the bottom area circled. And there's an X where Graniteville is, kind of in the top part of the little island. Can you figure that out?
Yep.
Okay. Does that give you any more information about what's happening here?
Well, I'm guessing this is all related to one family,
Okay.
and that I can feel the tears coming, but it's like really weird because one person is really cold and distant, and the other one, the one who's the emotional one, the one who's doing the waterworks,
Mhm.
makes me feel that they're the ones I should be arresting.
Okay, when you say they and the one, are you talking about what gender?
Oh, I think it's a man that did it, but my guess is because of the Queen of Wands, that the Queen of Wands gets blamed.
Okay, and who's the Queen of Wands? Just a woman at the moment?
Yes, the woman at the moment with dark hair.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, homeowner George Houseman, the oyster fisherman, he's away at sea, so that George has an alibi. Emmeline and her little toddler Anna Eliza and sister Polly are the main characters of our storyline now, and the apothecary George Waite. Okay, so when George Houseman is off to sea, Polly comes and visits and spends time with her sister-in-law to help her out with the baby. Okay, so we're now on the actual day, the afternoon or evening. Something happens in the Houseman home. What happens?
Well, I'm not seeing Christmas, so I'm sort of guessing that at this point someone died.
Absolutely. Can you expand on someone died?
Okay. Do you know, like, how to explain it? I sort of feel like I've either been hit, knocked out, but I keep smelling fire.
Okay.
I actually feel like I'm on fire. It's the only way to describe it.
Wow. Well, unbelievable, Darcy. What terrible tragedy. The Houseman home is set on fire. It burns. Of course, they can't put anything out in those days. It burns, and eventually the house is entered, and the discovery of Emmeline Houseman
Oh, wow.
and her 19-month-old daughter dead in the wreckage.
But they're not together, though.
Okay.
It feels like the daughter's in one place and the mother is farther, like they're not touching. It's not as though she's grabbed her and grabbed her to run out of the house. That's not what I'm feeling.
Okay. Well, you might expect smoke inhalation, and you might hope and pray that they were not alive, right, when the house burned. But the actual deaths are more surprising, more shocking, and worse. 24-year-old Emmeline's throat was slit. Her arms were broken. Her skull was smashed. To be blunt about it, she was viciously beaten and possibly even tortured. And her daughter was smothered. And then the house is set on fire. So you had already come up with the smell of smoke, the idea of fire, the idea that she wasn't close proximity with her daughter at the time they died. She couldn't possibly have done so because she was beaten to death, tortured to death. I don't know if they don't know if the daughter died first or last. I would imagine the mother died first, but I really don't know. Perhaps you do. But we're talking now a double homicide.
And they're absolutely sure the husband wasn't there.
Absolutely. He was at sea.
Okay. This is someone, it's a man, and it is definitely someone she knew.
Okay. Well, what would be a motive to kill Emmeline Houseman and her little girl?
First thing I think of is revenge.
Really?
Yeah. And
Okay.
maybe not necessarily to her, but because I keep hearing George is responsible. So what if George did something, that pissed someone off?
So you're hearing the terms, the sentence, George is responsible.
That's what I keep hearing in my head.
Okay, and you initially thought that meant George was the culprit.
Yeah,
of the
initially.
But now it may be George did something which caused these murders.
Well, could you imagine back then owing someone money and not paying it?
Yeah, you'd be in trouble.
And a fishing life then, it was at the whim of the sea, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A tough business. So same with farming, but fishing in particular. Yeah. Well, we can tell, obviously, I think we can say that the fire was set to try to hide the fact that two people were actually murdered in such, and especially Emmeline, in such a horrific way. Why would anyone, the person who's seeking revenge, let's say, why would they have set a fire? They are trying to hide the fact that they murdered these people and they thought the fire would cover it all, just because often I would imagine fires were fairly common.
Yeah, I would say that might be the case. But it's interesting because before you asked me what had happened to her, one of the things that hurt the most was my hands. Okay, like someone had stepped on my hands, hurt my hands. So I'm thinking that you said that she was tortured. I think she was tortured more than anyone realized.
Well, she certainly had her arms broken. I don't know if there might have been more details about other physical problems. So certainly I think you're on the right line. What would be the point of that? Is that like, why would you torture this poor woman?
Again, I keep hearing the word revenge.
Okay, wow. All right. Well, in the past, we've looked at photographs of tombstones, and they haven't always been much help to you, but we don't have a lot to choose from today. And so I have a photograph of Emmeline's actual tombstone, and I'm going to just show it to you and then the audience. So there's a photo. I don't know if people can.
You'll need to tilt it a little.
It is, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So it's a nice, elegant gray tombstone with a lot of writing, which really just says the dates of death and the names of the people who died. Okay. Do you get anything from this weather-worn tombstone?
Well, I'm going to take it, first of all, they're buried together.
Yes.
Okay. I feel comfort in that. I feel comfort that my daughter is with me. I like the fact they used the cups because that was the first card, I believe, I felt where emotionally there was a tie between the two of past, and the family cup, the 6 of cups.
Yep.
I feel I realize this is a horror to happen to anyone, but what I get from her is peace. I feel that the fact that they're together has given her peace.
Okay, and how do you know they're together?
Because it just felt like they were together. I could see a mother holding a child in her arms, so that would be together.
Okay. Well, it's interesting you talk about the cups because I was going to ask you, if you look again at this photograph, uh, yeah, there on the top of it are the letters Liz, E H. So that would be for Emmeline Houseman. But
Yeah.
below is a cup or an urn or something, and I think a pair of eyes. I don't know. I've never seen that symbol. I couldn't find anything about it on the internet. So I just throw it out to you. Yeah, does that mean
I,
anything to you?
I actually thought it was a pair of apples,
Oh, well,
you know?
could be. I really don't know. I just didn't think it looked. But does that mean anything to you, a vase or an urn or anything? Okay, because
No.
I just wondered if it related to your cup idea.
Well, it
Okay.
could. And it could be that the two of them together, like the two of cups represents a relationship and a pair. So the fact that they're together.
Okay. Well, here's the second image of that tombstone. You can see it has both their names on it. So there's
Yeah.
Emily and the daughter. So they are buried in this same grave, as you thought.
I'm glad they are.
Okay. And do you get a sense of Emmeline around that tombstone? You were talking about seeing somebody carrying a baby.
No, it was just I saw someone in my head carrying the baby. So to me, that meant the two of them were together. I would
Okay.
say that she's probably moved on. I don't feel her energy as strong. I don't think to her I'd be curious to see the inside of the house to see if she's still there.
Oh, okay. I don't think it exists anymore. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, then we have a heinous crime. A young mother, a baby, alone on Christmas Day, ruined, murdered violently, and then burned. Who committed this heinous crime?
They keep feeling it's a man.
Okay. Well, we only have two suspects really to draw on. We have Polly, the sister-in-law. Okay. And I'm going to show you an image of Polly. And unfortunately, I don't have an image of George. So we'll talk about Polly and then we'll talk about George the best we can. So here's an image of Polly. It's a woodcut again, so not a photograph in any way. But here's what Polly looks like. This is Polly Bodine. Quite
Wow.
the nose.
Yep, very dark. Very much. She's got the features of a man. But I don't think she did it.
Okay. Well, now I'm going to ask you to look at the next image because it's a representation of what is thought to have happened. Okay, so that would be image number 6. I'll have you have a look at image number 6. This is what is thought to have happened. Okay, you can see it. It is supposedly Polly Bodine leaving the scene of the crime. There's the smoke, the bed that they were found in around, the mother and child dead.
Okay. So they were in the same bed together. I thought the child was in a different spot.
I don't know if this is an accurate representation of what at all. It's just that this was what somebody sketched as what might have happened there. And of course, including Polly Bodine being the one who's leaving the room.
Yeah, no. I mean, they can blame her all they want, but if this went to court, it should have got kicked out.
Okay, well, there's the next question is, we don't know anything about George. We don't have any photographs of George Waite. And in fact, George doesn't get involved anymore. The case focuses 100% on Polly Bodine.
Wow.
Exactly. So let's dive into her a bit. She's 33 at the time. She's been married to the classic abusive drunken sailor. After a few tough years, she left him, took their 2 kids, and returned to her parents' home, which just happens to be across the street from the Housemans, which is why she was able to drop in on her sister-in-law as often as she did. She slept, as I said, in the home, I believe, on December 23rd. So she was, in the environment, obviously, in the surroundings. Sadly, Polly had a terrible reputation. She was, number one, separated from her husband. She was having an affair with a married man. She may also have worked as a prostitute. She had received at least one, if not more than one, abortion. She was seen drunk on a local ferry the day after the murders. She was 8 months pregnant, and everyone knew it wasn't by her husband because he was in prison for, wait for it, bigamy. So we're talking a pretty horrendous scenario here. So you can just imagine the reaction from the public and the media and how everything was skewed against Polly. Of course, made worse by the never-ending double standard that all women live with regarding men's sexual infidelity.
Yeah.
They in cheating hearts all the time, but women never, okay? But of most import and concern, Polly was supposedly seen, though shielded by a veil, on Christmas Day by several pawnbrokers hawking items from her brother's home. So this is all pretty damaging stuff, Darcy. You still think she's innocent?
I do, because how do they know who is behind the veil?
I don't know. I presume they thought they could recognize her behind the veil. They recognized her walk, her gait. Remember, we're talking 200 people in this little place, roughly. I'm just guessing, but very small numbers. And everybody literally knew everybody else.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to say that, yes, I agree. Some of this has to do with money. Okay. Because all I'm doing is pulling money cards. We've got the 7 of coins, the King of coins, and the 3 of coins. So this is all about money.
Okay.
So this is someone who was owed money. Okay. Somehow I get the feeling that if Polly needed money, she probably could have got it if she did prostitution, then she got her money.
Right.
I'm feeling that I can't help but feel that someone has taken advantage of, one, her reputation, which was pretty lacking there in that time frame, and two, similar to her build, I'm not feeling it's her. I don't feel there's enough evidence to prove that she did it. And I couldn't imagine someone at 8 months being able to do that.
That was the one thing that really struck me, is exactly that comment. 8 months pregnant, you're going to be torturing your sister-in-law, beating her up, slitting her throat, and smothering a baby when you yourself are about to give birth.
Yeah.
But hey, unfortunately we weren't there in 1843, and poor old Polly Bodine hadn't a snowball's chance in heck. She was ripe for arrest as the main suspect, and yes, she was arrested for double homicide on New Year's Day, 1844.
Wow.
George Waite, the apothecary, is just in the wind of some sort and has no involvement whatsoever. There was a rumor that George Houseman, the man who's the fisherman who's away for fishing, that he had silver coins in a bag in the house. This is the rumor. Now, they must have had their own little, knickknacks, I guess. I don't think they were very well off. But this was a rumor that somebody might have been looking for the silver coins.
Okay.
Now, Polly didn't have silver coins. She had household items. I'm not sure what, but my imagination is, candlesticks or cups or something like that.
And they could have been her in-laws. They don't know who they belong to.
Yeah, or they could have been her own. I mean, people said they were from that house, but I really don't know how they prove that.
So let me clarify. George, the husband, sort of disappeared off the face of the earth.
Oh, no, he was at sea when this happened.
Absolutely positive. They're sure he was.
All I can say is what I know from my research. George, the apothecary, the pharmacist, he had some kind of an alibi. Can't guarantee it. I have nothing on him. So he just was out of the picture somehow.
Yeah, he is out of the picture.
Like poor Polly, I mean, she didn't have a hope given all the things that she had against her. Not to mention some, as you had earlier said, there was hints of other things, and we'll get into it right now. So, of course, this case was of national interest. It was a lurid tabloid sensation, just like many of the famous cases today where women, sex, infidelity, and immorality might be in play. Like, you remember Casey Anthony, who was found not guilty of murdering her daughter, and of Jodi Arias, who was convicted of murdering her ex-boyfriend. So sensational cases where women and sex and infidelity are around. So what do you think the next phase is in Polly's journey in this mystery, Darcy?
Oh, well, given the time and frame, let's just say that maybe, see, I pulled this dark card again, which
Yep.
makes me always the Knight of Swords. So maybe someone felt that she used something against them. Yeah, I just cannot see how she did it.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
trying to, but I can't. So let's say because of thunder and lightning, what's a good time to have thunder and lightning? When you're casting a spell, because it brings the spirits down a little closer.
okay.
So let's say maybe someone accused her of black magic or witchcraft against the family.
Well, you're pretty well right there in that she was demonized as immoral, guilty, and as a witch.
Oh my God.
Okay. You had mentioned that right up front. She had supposedly devilish power over men. So, and as we know, during the 17th through the 19th century, there were countless trials for witches in the US, most famously in Salem, Massachusetts. But there were many, many hearings, prosecutions, trials in the New York State itself. In fact, one of the last recorded New York State witch trials occurred in 1815, so this whole idea of hysterical fear of powerful, strange women could easily have resonated 35 years later among the ignorant people in Staten Island. It's within their lifetime.
Oh yeah.
That was the last one that they know of had happened. So why would witchcraft even come into this situation, Darcy?
The immoral aspect, the fact that she couldn't entice men to do what she wanted, like she left her husband, like you said earlier, the fact that if she was a prostitute, that was considered, again, the immoral side, but people used to link it to witches had a overactive sexual appetite.
They certainly seem to think so, don't they?
Yeah.
It's unreal how much there's such a focus on that by people. Well, just like the poor women during the Salem witch trials, and I guess other trials throughout the world probably, they were incongruously drowned as a way of proving whether they were a witch or not.
Mhm.
Poor old Polly Bodine was doomed from the start. Even P.T. Barnum, he of the famous quip, "There's a sucker born every minute," he got into the act. Good old P.T. created a lurid waxwork tableau of Polly, looking witch-like, kicking Emmeline to death in the burning bedroom. And to add insult to injury, P.T. declared his waxwork scene was about that most wicked and wretched woman. And the dance exhibit was located about a block from the courthouse. She really didn't have much chance.
No, she didn't.
Before Polly, though, stands trial, something very tragic happens to her while she's incarcerated.
Which she lost her baby.
Yeah, she lost her baby.
That stress would do it.
Yeah. She bore a stillborn child a few days after she was arrested, so early in 1844. So not near the 9 months deadline of birth, which is, really sad. So now there really are 3 victims in this tragedy.
Yes.
Not to mention Polly herself, but 3 individuals. Well, the slow grind of justice for Emmeline and little Anna Eliza begins a few months later in June of 1844 as Polly's put on trial. I don't have a lot of details, but I'm just going to show you an image of what they say Polly looked like when she supposedly stole or hawked the items from the house. So here's image number 7. And there she is. She has a very distinctive nose, doesn't she?
She looks like a man.
She does have that sort of heavy features and heavy forehead look. Yeah. Now, this is their way of saying we could see through the veil. Okay.
But technically you can't, because if you look at the detail of the veil and the work in it, technically you shouldn't have been able to see her face properly, because there wouldn't have been that clear spot.
Exactly. Yes. And that's just the artistic license here. You're precisely right. I don't know how they could have identified her from that, but they did. Okay. Well, what do you think happens in this trial? Have you any sense of it?
I really really hope she was acquitted. Because there is nothing there to prove that she did it.
Okay, interesting. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the residents of this Staten Island were very close genetically, okay, both in proximity and, of course, in their genes. So it ended up being quite difficult to find independent jurors.
Yes.
Case, okay. And in the end, the trial ended very dramatically when the jurors were deadlocked. So there was a hung jury. But that's not the end of the story for poor Polly. What do you think happens next?
Let's see, they, given the time frame, maybe they arrested her for something else.
I'll tell you, she went on trial a second time. Believe it or not, a year later.
For the same thing? I thought there's double jeopardy.
Well, she was a hung jury, I guess means that they can still send her, try one more time. They had a second trial, as I said. It was held in Manhattan, so further afield.
Yeah.
And at that trial, she was found guilty.
Guilty. No.
Guilty. Yes, she was found guilty with a recommendation of mercy after nearly 50 hours of deliberation. But wait, that's not all. Polly has a little bit of a guardian angel. An appeal to the Supreme Court later overturned that conviction. The court declared that the jurors' opinions might have been tainted due to the outrageous and untruthful, damaging press coverage. So the final decision was this trial was considered unfair and unsound, with the Supreme Court finally declaring a mistrial. So strike two, she's made it through strike two. Now what happens to her?
Oh, please don't tell me they do it again.
They do it again.
Oh my God. I thought once it's struck down, that's it.
Unbelievable. A third trial was arranged yet another year later, April 1846, in a town about 60 kilometers away, again, trying to find independent jurors. Okay. It took 3 weeks and several thousand prospective jurors before they landed the final dozen. What happened at this third trial, Darcy?
The poor lady has such bad luck and good luck at the same time. I'm going to say, I really hope they find her not guilty.
You are correct. Polly Bodine was acquitted and set free. So I want you to look at our photo number 8, which is a little newspaper clipping talking about what happened. I don't know if you can read that. Can you read that?
Yep.
Okay, could you read that for us? What it says, what happened with Polly's last trial.
Okay, you got to put it back up there.
Oh, I'm sorry, you don't have it. Sorry.
No, I'm going off of yours. I'm not looking at mine.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, here you go.
Back up just a little.
Okay.
The long and vexatious case of Polly Bodine closed on Saturday last by the Newburgh jury rendering a verdict of not guilty. We suppose, of course, she will now be tried for larceny. Whatever may be said about the murder, the proof is clear and unquestionable that she pardoned, I think, the articles of the murdered woman and child. Oh, pawned. A couple of days after the murder, and if she is not tried and convicted for larceny, we shall have less faith in the existing laws than ever. We cannot forgo the occasion to say that this is another proof of the need of a change in punishment for murder from hanging to imprisonment, I guess, for life.
Yeah.
I'm adding the last one because it doesn't show it.
Okay, yes, I think it is for life. You're right. It's interesting. The thought was that they didn't want to hang a woman. Not that that was why they declared her not guilty, but the idea that the punishment was so severe was a deterrent. That seems to have been a thought at the time.
And yet they hung women all the time.
I know. I don't know that. So I'll give you another shot of another little idea of what Polly was supposed to look like. This is from a newspaper. Okay. And here's Polly looking very similar. Poor thing. This is her third trial. And there she is in the dark cloak.
Yeah.
Dark hair. And
when I look, okay, the artist's rendering is horrific. But when I look at it, if she's holding her hands like she looks more innocent here than she has anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
would
it
agree.
looks like they put a mask on her face.
She's got a terrible face, doesn't she? But she does look a little humble compared to before. Okay. Well, so if Polly didn't do it, and we think she didn't do it, right? We don't
Yes,
see
I
any
do.
reason why she would do it. And you knew right away it wasn't Polly. You think possibly this unknown George did it, or is there possibly someone else out there that could have been going after George Houseman's family for revenge?
They were going after, well, you brought up the interesting, and because I kept picking the money coin cards,
Yeah.
and you said that George, it was known that George, or rumored that George had money in the house. It is
Yep.
feasible they were trying to find that money. But I keep feeling it's connected to the husband, and she just happened to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see any motive for killing Emmeline, a 24-year-old, housewife, and a little baby. It's insane.
Oh, I can. If I've tortured them and I obviously broke her hands, her arms, I would want to, and slit her throat, I'd want to hide the evidence.
Okay,
So-
but what you have to do that to her? Because she wouldn't find the money. She didn't know where the money was.
That's probably never had the money, but they kept saying, the cards keep saying, this is about money.
Okay, well, the cards are always right?
Most of the time, yes.
Most of the time. Well, they certainly have been spot on today. Okay, well, that's an amazing storyline there, Darcy. I really enjoyed that one. We've come to the end. I'm going to show you Polly's headstone.
Okay.
But I like your ideas that there's some reason something George has done, the husband, that would cause somebody to come and perhaps attack. Now, maybe they knew George was at sea. This is what I'm thinking. I think most people would know when the fishermen were out.
Yeah.
No, it was Christmas Day, but they might have known he wasn't around, and that would be the time they would attack, or go into the house and scare the wife and find the coins and take off.
Yep. I would agree with that. Do you know what they actually ended up charging her with larceny? I hope they just left her alone.
I don't know if they charged her with larceny, but they left her alone. She lived for a while longer and just died. Like, what a sad life.
Yeah.
Really, God. So here's our last image, number 10. Here's her tombstone. There.
Okay. Is it Mary Polly?
Yes, Mary Polly.
Wow. It's simple. It's nice. I like it.
Do you get a sense of her there?
I feel a lot of sadness, but I feel like this is from her family too. So maybe someone down the generations actually put it up for her.
Yeah, probably. I would think so, because she certainly wouldn't have been able to afford something like that herself. No. Okay, well, I think you've done a remarkable job with your tarot cards tonight. They were spot on.
Yeah.
Good old Toby. So just to recap, you have a deck of cards and you just pull one off the top, or you're pulling them from other places. How do you decide what to pick?
Okay, so I shuffled the cards, and then I sort of fan them out and I pull wherever I feel the energies from. And then once I've done it, I shuffle them again. And that's hence why, strangely enough, we got the Knight of Swords twice.
Because you could feel it energy?
The energy said, pull me. So I pulled it.
Well, so when you do use tarot cards, then unlike our playing game cards, if we have a card, we use it, we chuck it. It's no longer part of the game. You can still reuse tarot cards.
I can still reuse them.
Oh, is that common? Like, that's the way it goes?
Not everyone. I mean, normally I just pull so many cards, but tonight I thought, well, we'll just keep mixing them up and seeing if I get the same message.
Well, you got a remarkable message. You had family. You had the thought of fire early on with the wands, I think. You had the walking around business. So that's 3 trials in 3 different locations.
No kidding.
So there you go. You also had the revenge idea. I mean, that seems to be the only possible motive for murdering these people. Yeah, those cards were remarkable.
Yep. I liked my cards, but I was also sort of reaching out to Polly to say, give me some information. And everything says she didn't do it, because why would someone at 8 months pregnant try to kill someone?
In that such a violent manner. I mean,
Yeah.
you might poison somebody, I guess, but
You
vicious,
would hit someone.
physical stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the woman was a young, probably a decent shaped young woman, so she's not 8 months pregnant,
No.
so she would have been able to, I would have thought, defend herself against Polly,
Same
but
here.
not against, somebody perhaps male and stronger, or more than one. Do you get a sense of more than one?
And I only feels like one.
Oh, okay. One killer. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't solved the murder of Polly, of Emmeline and Anna Eliza, but we certainly got close to the fact that we came to the conclusion Polly was innocent, which everybody agreed upon, and thank goodness in the time frame. And we came up with a motive that I don't know that has been as commonly thought of. So, way to go.
Well, and for my last part is, I still think it's someone by the name of George.
Well, it could well be George. Wait, I'd have to, it would be astounding if there were 3 Georges, but I guess it could have been him. I don't know, but maybe George is a pretty common name.
It could be back then.
Yeah. Well, we had George Houseman and we have George Wake. We have 2 guys right in the same kind of family grouping. So, and not uncommon, obviously.
Yes.
Cool.
Thank you for listening to Seeing Dead People, where goosebumps are guaranteed. We would love to hear from you with questions for Darcy about her psychic process, or suggestions for other mystifying situations you would like us to investigate. Please shoot us an email to info@radiosydney.ca with Seeing Dead People in the subject line. New episodes air on our website, radiosydney.ca, on the first Saturday of every month. Episodes repeat Saturday nights at 8 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 10 a.m., both Pacific time. All episodes are available as downloadable podcasts at our website or on our YouTube channel, Nicola Furlong Mysteries. I'm Dorian Mortis, weirdly keen on seeing dead people. This has been a presentation of Radio Sydney.